On this Tuesday night, the Conservatives unveil their costed platform. The billions in promised spending and cuts.
We will cut the Liberal deficit by 70%.
How it compares to the Liberals' plan and what economists think of it. The trial begins for 5 former NHL players accused of sexual assault. The evidence expected to emerge. Finalizing the Pope's funeral arrangements, when he'll be laid to rest, plus what we're learning about his final hours. And eternal gratitude.
It was a miracle.
Poignant memories of the pontiff's landmark apology for Canada's residential schools.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Neetu Garcha.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. With less than a week to go until Election Day, millions of Canadians have already cast their ballots. Elections Canada confirms a record 7.3 million people voted during advance polls, which closed last night. But they did so without a full costed platform from the Conservative Party. That platform was only released today. And with just days left in the campaign, both Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre and Liberal leader Mark Carney have been going on the offensive.
The choice is this: a 4th Liberal term with Mark Carney, whose reckless Liberal plan will add even more debt than Trudeau, or a new Conservative government with a responsible plan.
He wants to cut what Canada needs. With our plan, we will build to make Canada strong.
Touria Izri begins our coverage tonight with the long-awaited details of the Tories' costed platform.
The Conservatives are banking on this plan to win over Canadians.
Change to put Canada first.
Change is the name of their long-awaited platform, which includes $73 billion in tax cuts and $36 billion in new spending over 4 years.
We will cut the Liberal deficit by 70%. By cutting back on bureaucracy, consultants, foreign aid to dictators, terrorists, and global bureaucracies.
Poilievre also made a new promise, never hiking federal taxes without a referendum first.
The Conservative platform is based on the idea that a lot of these problems can be best addressed by reducing taxes and getting government out of the way.
Even with the cuts, there's no path to balancing the books. Poilievre is planning to run deficits totaling $100 billion between now and 2029.
Let's be clear, all of these deficits that we're talking about are inherited from the previous Liberal government.
The Conservatives are betting their policies will spur economic growth and generate revenue.
The Conservatives, I think, are tabling a realistic plan, a pragmatic plan that puts us on the right trajectory.
But there are questions about their accounting methods.
Some things are being counted as revenues that are actually going to be expenditures.
We'll cut.
Poilievre was the last leader to put out a costed platform, only releasing an advance copy for reporters to review and inform questions less than an hour before making it public. Poilievre is holding a rally in the riding of Vaughan Woodbridge, which is held by the Liberals. It's just the kind of GTA swing seat that Conservatives must win if they want to form government. Neetu?
All right, Touria Izri in Vaughan, Ontario. Thanks, Touria. Mark Carney didn't hold back, slamming the Conservatives for releasing their platform just 6 days before Election Day. But the Liberals are facing heat too, with a platform that promises $130 billion in new measures over 4 years. Pierre Poilievre says that plan will drive up deficits and make life more expensive for Canadians. Tonight, Mackenzie Gray looks at how the Liberal leader is firing back.
It was Mark Carney's sharpest criticism of the campaign.
These numbers are a joke. We aren't in a joke. We are in the worst crisis of our lives.
The Liberal leader going off on the Conservative platform that he believes cooks the books to show smaller deficits than what the Liberals are proposing.
If we made the assumptions that the Conservatives did about growth in our platform, we'd be in a fiscal surplus in 5 years.
Those assumptions adding an estimated $37.1 billion in tax revenue to the Conservative platform from policy and program changes, including revenue from building more houses, killing the electric vehicle mandate, dumping the industrial carbon tax, and repealing the oil and gas cap, a practice economists say is seldom used in government budgeting.
One of the rules of people who kind of write electoral platforms, who look at the fiscal costing, is that you don't include kind of secondary revenues from something.
The Conservatives have the larger tax cut at $30 billion in foregone revenue compared to Carney's $22 billion over 4 years, but the Poilievre plan is largely backloaded.
He also has a tax cut, a bring-it-home tax cut that never comes home. It doesn't arrive until year 4 and 5.
On defense spending, both parties plan to hit 2% of GDP by 2030, with the Liberals promising slightly more for the military, one of the only similarities between the frontrunners. The Conservatives are planning $36.9 billion in cuts over 4 years by slashing external consultants, foreign aid, and defunding the CBC. That's compared to $28 billion in completely undefined Liberal cuts.
I think on both sides, whether it's Liberal or Conservatives, you have a lot of undefined elements in a platform.
With both the Liberal and Conservative costed platforms showing no path to a balanced budget and being released so close to Election Day, it's a sign neither party wants their details to be what voters focus on, Neithu. Poilievre hoping Canadians want change from the Liberals, Carney wanting the ballot question to be about Donald Trump.
All right, Mackenzie Gray in Laval, Quebec. Thanks, Mackenzie. And Donna Friesen will host a special edition of Global National from Quebec City tomorrow, the political heart of a province that has for decades been at the center of Canada's national unity debate. But with the threats posed by U.S. President Donald Trump, sentiments are shifting for many Quebecers. That's tomorrow on Global National. And on Monday, we'll have full coverage of the federal election. Decision Canada will be live starting at 7 Eastern and 4 Pacific right here on Global and on all our streaming platforms. Cardinals in Vatican City have confirmed Pope Francis's funeral will be held Saturday morning. Presidents, prime ministers, royalty, alongside clergy and the public will gather at St. Peter's Basilica for the ceremony. Meanwhile, the Vatican News Agency is revealing new details about the Pope's final hours and the circumstances surrounding his death. Global's Redmond Shannon joins us from St. Peter's Square tonight.
Neithu, many of those visiting the Vatican here this week have been planning their trip for months. Little did they know they would be witnessing a moment of history. A pope protected in death as he was in life, flanked by the famous Swiss guards. The Pope's Chamberlain, or Camerlengo, Cardinal Kevin Farrell, blesses Francis in the Vatican's chapel of Casa Santa Marta, where he'll remain until Wednesday morning, when the pontiff's body will be brought to St. Peter's Basilica. Mourners will then have 3 days to file past and pay their respects before the funeral, now confirmed for 10 a.m. local time Saturday. Among those who happen to be visiting the Vatican this week are the Rumo family from Grimsby, Ontario. They were touring the Roman Forum when the news broke Monday.
Our tour guide stopped to say, "Oh, I just read this news. We just got news that the Pope has died."
What was the feeling among you and the tour group?
Sad. Everyone was sad. I think a little shocked, even though he has been sick for some time.
We wanted to pay homage ourselves and be here today to say a few prayers and just be together.
On Tuesday, the Vatican's news agency reported new details about the Pope's final hours. It said before his surprise Easter Sunday ride through St. Peter's Square, he asked his nurse, "Do you think I can manage it?" Afterwards, the Vatican says Francis thanked the nurse for bringing him back to the square. Vatican News says the Pope became ill at 5:30 on Monday morning and that he gestured a farewell wave to the nurse before falling into a coma. Those present said he did not appear to suffer. The first chance for members of the public to file past the coffin of Pope Francis will be 11 a.m. on Wednesday. Then at 7 p.m. on Friday, the doors of St. Peter's will close in preparation for the funeral. But that won't take place inside the building. It will take place here on the square outside before tens of thousands who are expected to attend. Neithu?
Redmond Shannon at the Vatican. Thanks, Redmond. Global dignitaries will be attending the Pope's funeral at St. Peter's Square on Saturday. World leaders include British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, French President Emmanuel Macron, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, and U.S. President Donald Trump. The royal family has confirmed Prince William will also be there. Still no word on who might represent Canada, with federal leaders here busy making their final election push this weekend. And later in the newscast, our Heather Yurex-West visits Musquecheese, Alberta, where the Pope made a historic apology, recognizing the suffering and unresolved pain from Catholic-run residential schools. A high-profile sexual assault trial is underway in Ontario. 5 members of Canada's 2018 World Junior Hockey team are accused of assaulting a woman and have pleaded not guilty. The incident allegedly took place in a London hotel room after the team's championship win. Jeff Semple was in court today and is following the developments. Jeff?
Hi, Neethu. That courtroom was packed with members of the media, family members of the accused, as all 5 of those former professional hockey players pleaded not guilty to sexual assault.
The 5 accused arrived in court almost 7 years since an alleged sexual assault that has rocked the world of hockey.
We call this our national sport, and yet it's the one that's on trial right now.
In June 2018, Team Canada had just won the World Junior Championship. A Hockey Canada gala was held at this London, Ontario bar. Police say the alleged victim met one of the players, and the two went to this hotel for consensual sex. But the woman alleges 7 other players then showed up and engaged in sexual acts without her consent. Police investigated, but no charges were laid, and the case was closed. But in 2022, it was revealed that Hockey Canada had settled a lawsuit with the alleged victim out of court, using funds from youth hockey registration fees, sparking a public outcry.
Hockey Canada has completely lost the confidence of Canadians.
The federal government temporarily suspended Hockey Canada's funding, and police reopened their investigation.
My sincerest apology to the victim.
Allegations of sexual assault involving high-profile athletes rarely make it to criminal court.
A lot of the past has been, covered by non-disclosure agreements or covered up.
One of the reasons victim advocates say is that a trial can be grueling. The 5 defendants each have their own legal team, meaning the alleged victim could face 5 rounds of intense cross-examination.
Typically talk about sexual assault trials as being like a second rape. This is going to be like that. It's going to be deeply humiliating.
Legal experts say the case will likely hinge on the question of consent.
In the old days, that would be enough, right? But in this particular case, all of those players had their careers destroyed the day the allegation was made, and they were sacrificed at the altar of public opinion.
All 5 men went on to have NHL careers, and at the time of their arrests 18 months ago, all were playing professional hockey. But after the charges were laid, their contracts were not renewed. Now, many of their former teammates are still playing in the NHL, some competing right now in the playoffs. Some of them are expected to be called to testify here. Jury selection is now complete, Neethu. Opening statements expected tomorrow.
Okay, Jeff Semple in London, Ontario. Thanks for that, Jeff. A 16-year-old boy has died in hospital after being shot by police during a traffic stop in Toronto. The shooting happened Sunday night and was captured by a security camera. Investigators say 2 officers opened fire during what they're calling an exchange of gunfire. The teen died this morning. 6 people were inside the vehicle, but it's still unclear if the teen was the driver, a passenger, or if he fired a weapon. Ontario's police watchdog is now investigating. At least 20 people have been killed in the Indian-administered Kashmir region after gunmen opened fire on a group of tourists. Most of the dead are believed to be Indian nationals, with 2 victims reportedly from Nepal and the United Arab Emirates. The area has had a resurgence of tourism thanks to Islamist militant violence dropping in recent years. An offshoot of a Pakistani jihadist group has claimed responsibility for the attack. Israeli airstrikes in Gaza have destroyed vital machinery used to clear rubble and recover bodies. Bulldozers that served 300,000 people in Jabalia are now gone, and residents say many people are still trapped under debris. At least 24 more people were killed in Tuesday's bombardments, according to health officials in the Strip. Meanwhile, international outrage is growing over the killing of 15 aid workers in Gaza. The Israeli military has admitted to errors in the deadly shootings and faces mounting pressure for accountability. The U.S. president is amping up his attacks against the head of that country's central bank. Coming up, why that's driving down the greenback and the stock market. The realities of employment law seem to be colliding with Donald Trump's unique brand of politics tonight. After repeatedly threatening to fire the head of the U.S. central bank, something that can't be legally done unless there is just cause, Trump tonight says he has no intention of dismissing Fed Chairman Jerome Powell. Trump's taken issue with Powell for not cutting interest rates to spur the U.S. economy. An economy that, as Ann Gaviola reports, the president is now threatening to send into a tailspin with his own tariff policy.
Another escalation of Trump's campaign against the man leading the U.S. central bank. Trump calling Jerome Powell Mr. Too Late and a major loser on social media Monday, demanding he cut interest rates now.
It looks as though he's trying to pin the blame on the weak economy that could come from the president's own tariffs on Powell, saying, "Oh, they just didn't cut interest rates fast enough."
The only way to oust the head of the central bank is for cause, not political disagreements.
The markets are reacting to our president. Clearly, the policies are absolutely erratic.
Investors questioning the stability of American stocks, also fleeing bonds and the U.S. dollar, assets long viewed as safe havens. Tariff uncertainty has propelled the price of gold to record highs, a sign investors are scared.
That credibility of central banks is absolutely essential, and central bank independence is a key component for that credibility.
Eroding trust in the team leading the world's largest economy prompted the IMF to slash its growth forecast, warning that Trump's trade war will hit global prosperity.
It's very, very hard to figure exactly where this will land.
Pierre Poilievre on Friday was asked by Global News on the campaign trail if elected, would he fire the head of Canada's central bank as he's previously threatened.
Looking for a yes or no answer.
Well, listen, my view is that when governments drive up inflation, the people who are responsible should be held accountable.
Meantime, Trump's tough talk is sowing the seeds for a possible recession in the U.S.
That risk has increased from about 25% back in October to almost 40% now. So that's a significant increase.
And Canada won't be unscathed if the U.S. economy falters. Neetu?
Ann Gaviola in Toronto. Thanks, Ann. More than 180 university and college presidents across the U.S. are speaking out, accusing the Trump administration of threatening their independence. In a joint letter, the academic leaders slam what they call unprecedented government overreach and political interference, with academic leaders saying they oppose undue government intrusion into the lives of those who learn, live, and work on our campuses. It comes a day after Harvard University launched a lawsuit against President Trump's efforts to freeze billions in federal funds to the school. Celebrating the planet. Ahead, how Canadians are marking Earth Day's 55th anniversary. How's this for counting your blessings? These pedestrians in the city of Poughkeepsie, New York, barely escaping serious injuries, if not their lives, after a storm sewer literally blew its cover earlier this afternoon. It turns out it was one of two exploding sewer caps in the neighborhood. The culprit seems to be a carbon monoxide leak in adjacent buildings that created enough pressure for the accidents to happen. Today is Earth Day, and Canadians from coast to coast to coast did their bit to sound the alarm over the climate crisis. In Calgary, people were out plogging. If you're not familiar with it, it's a mix between jogging and picking up trash. It's become pretty popular in recent years. And in Kingston, Ontario, a local seniors group demanded world leaders step up and take action before we hit the point of no return. Historic heartfelt apology and the powerful moment of healing. How some Indigenous communities in Canada are reacting to the Pope's passing. In Argentina, mourners are paying tribute to Pope Francis. Landmarks nationwide are lit in his honor and memorials line the streets of the capital. Large crowds are also gathering in Flores, the humble neighborhood where the late pontiff's journey as a priest began. Even as a priest, the late pontiff dedicated his life to serving the poor and showed compassion for those who suffered under the church's shadow. His progressive views often put him at odds with the church doctrine, but he remained steadfast in his mission for reform. That became evident here in Canada when Francis delivered a long-awaited apology during a historic trip. Heather Yurex-West traveled to Musquecheese, Alberta, where the Pope is being remembered as the pontiff who said he was sorry.
Pope Francis sat in that chair as he was delivering his apology.
This little Catholic church in Musquecheese, Alberta, is filled with mementos of a truly historic day, when on July 25th, 2022, the head of the Catholic Church came to apologize.
I am deeply sorry.
It gave me a sense of joy, for sure, that he had a heart to come here, that he had a heart to ask for forgiveness.
Gilda Sousse was part of a small group of parishioners and elders who met privately with the Pope earlier that day. As the daughter and sister of residential school survivors who also experienced abuse at day school, she says it was a powerful moment of healing.
It was a miracle, but also, a gateway for me to strengthen my faith, to have more hope.
Despite the immense physical challenges he was facing at that time, with mobility and the pain he experienced that I saw visibly manifested in his face as often as we had to move him, that he still saw this as something that needed to be done.
Musquecheese, once home to one of the largest residential schools in Canada, was the first stop in the Pope's week-long penitential pilgrimage for the church's role in a residential school system that terrorized and traumatized tens of thousands of Indigenous kids.
I'm a product of the residential school systems, as my mother was in the school system, same with my grandmother, my gokum. So definitely, I've seen those impacts of trauma firsthand.
3 years later, Chief Desmond Bull says his community's journey towards healing has yet to end. But there is deep gratitude for the Pope's words that day.
So for me, I am grateful that he had done that, and history books will recognize that.
Pope Francis forever remembered as the pontiff who acknowledged and sought penance for generations of suffering and pain. Heather Yurex-West, Global News, Musquecheese, Alberta.
And that is Global National for this Tuesday. I'm Neetu Garcha. Tonight's Your Canada showcases Clear Lake near Wainwright, Alberta, Parliament Hill in Ottawa, and some Canadian and Quebecois flags in Montreal. Keep them coming. Send your pictures of Canadian pride to globalnational@globalnews.ca. Thanks for watching.